Hello class, this is your teacher Mr. McDougall with your next project tutorial. We are going to do our second project in Photoshop. Remember, there's a difference between projects and classwork. The classwork is practice, and then when we get to a project, that's where you're going to start applying those skills and create your own files. So in this one, it's going to be called My Clones. You're going to create clones of yourself, like my examples right here. We're going to practice what we've been learning so far with blending images and layer masks. And we're going to create a scene of you interacting with clones of yourself. So I'll walk you through how you're going to do that in Photoshop briefly, but it's not going to be that many new techniques. It's going to be stuff we've been practicing already. So you need to get a partner to take a photo of you. A partner, you need a camera and a tripod. Tripod is very important because the camera cannot move when you're taking the photos, or else it'll be difficult to blend them together. So find a spot to take your photos, and you need to take at least 3 clone shots. So you need at least 3 clones on the screen, but you can do more. You can have a whole army of clones if you want. You could do like example number 2 here. You can have 6, 7, or as many as you can fit on the screen. It's completely up to you, but at least 3 at a minimum. So you'll take your shots, save them to a folder on your Google Drive, and then you will upload them into Photoshop to begin editing. One thing that will be new is that we're taking the photos, we're still taking photos in RAW. We practiced that in the beginning units when we did photography. We learned about raw photos. So something that will be slightly different when you open raw photos in Photoshop. So if I take all the photos I'm going to open and I bring them into Photoshop, if they're raw photos, it's going to open up a different menu. It's going to look like this. First, it's going to let you make any kind of adjustments. And a lot of this will look very similar to Lightroom Classic. So this should be familiar to you. So this is your chance to make sure that your photos are balanced and not too bright and not too dark. One thing that's extremely important to keep in mind is that when you're taking your photos, that the lighting is as controlled as you can make it. Make sure the lighting stays the same. I would avoid shooting in direct sunlight. You do not want to shoot in direct sunlight. You will either want to shoot inside where the lighting is constant or in the shade where the change is very minimal. You could see in all of these shots, the only thing that's changing is me. The scenery and the lighting in the background is unchanged, and that's the key to making this effect look good, is the background and the lighting has to look exactly the same in all 3 photos. So you can adjust these a little bit, and when you're adjusting them, make sure you're adjusting them all at the same time. I could adjust this one, so if I click on this one, and I come over here, I know I'm going to use these 3 together. I can hold Shift and click this one. Oh, didn't work that time. Let's try again. There's a little bit of a lag. Hold Shift. There we go. Hold Shift and click, and you'll see all 3 of them are highlighted. So now if I'm editing this one, I'm editing all 3 of them together. So if I want to make this one a little bit warmer, I can do that, or a little bit brighter, I can do that. You see how all 3 of them are being affected now because we want it to be the same. I don't want to edit this one and then edit this one a little bit differently, and this one's orange and this one's pink, because that's not going to make the effect look good. All 3 of these have to look exactly the same. And then if you want to do the same thing on these ones, I would highlight all of these right here. This is just an example of me doing 2 different scenes to give you 2 different examples. You don't have to do this many photos, but you need to do at least 3. Remember, I have all of them selected, so all of them are being affected the exact same way. There we go. Excellent. So when you're ready to open them in Photoshop, you have to make sure all of them are selected, and then you're going to click Open. So I'm going to open every single one of these. I'm going to highlight the first one. This is just like when we export photos in Lightroom Classic. Make sure you click the first one, scroll to the end, hold Shift, and click the last one, and now they're all selected. And then when they're all selected, you're going to click Open once you've finished editing these. So click Open. If you click Done, it'll just close it. It won't do anything. Make sure you click Open and make sure you have them all selected. If you only have one selected, it's only going to open one, and you'll have to start over. So if I click Open, now you'll see it's opening each one of them in Photoshop in its own tab, and you can start creating the effect. And I've already edited them with lighting and shadows and exposure. So now I could just focus on the layer mask editing. I don't have to worry about editing highlights and shadows because I've already done that part. That part was much easier. All right. Let's start with these 3. I'll just do these 3 as a simple one, as an explanation. So just like we've been practicing in the last few exercise assignments with blending images and layer mask, that's how you're going to create this effect. So you can, as I mentioned again, all these photos look exactly the same. This is why you need to take your camera pictures on a tripod so the camera doesn't move. If there's the slightest movement or change in the background, it's going to be hard to recreate the effect. You want everything to stay exactly the same except for you. You're going to move around in all your shots. So you're going to take all your clone shots and put them onto one of your exercise files. It doesn't matter which one. Put this one right here. Make sure they're exactly the same. And let's do the same with this one. Remember, you can move with the move tool or you can select all and copy paste. Completely up to you. Now they're all stacked on top of each other. Let's rename them. I'm going to call this one left and this one right. And here is my original. Remember, layer order, I'm seeing whichever one is on the top. Now we just need to use layer mask to see through them. So however many you've taken, and this will change depending on your positioning, depending on this. This is where you get to take your time and really experiment on exactly how your layer mask is going to work. You might do it on the left or the right, side by side. It doesn't really matter. But the only thing that to keep in mind is you put a layer mask on every single one except for the bottom layer. The background original layer is the only one that doesn't need a layer mask. The rest of them do. So we'll click on this one and we will add a layer mask. And we'll click on this one and we'll add a layer mask as well. And now we can start brushing to reveal the people underneath it. So let's go to our brush tool. Remember, the layer mask is white, which means it's being hidden. If I brush with black, that will reveal what's underneath. So if I start brushing now with black, I can see this person starting to come in right there. So I can brush with black however I need to reveal the character. And I want to brush right here too because the other middle person is going to pop up in just a second. So I want to brush right here. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Now I'm on this mask. Remember, you're clicking on the mask specifically. Don't paint on the image. You want to paint on the mask. Now I'm going to brush right here to reveal the middle person. Right there. Now it's all looking good. Clones are there. If you start brushing too far, now I've accidentally started brushing him away. Remember, you can just switch back and forth. This is where you get to switch back and forth. Just take your time, figure out which parts need to be brushed, black or white. So if I make a mistake, I can start making it come back. If I brush with white, it makes the person appear again. There you go. Now you just need to start brushing to reveal the character. And if you brush too far, you might start doing that. Remember, you can do Control-Z to undo. That's okay. One other thing to keep in mind is you'll notice in order to sell the effect, none of my clones are crossing bodies. I'm not having them high five or their body parts are not overlapping in any way. They're staying separate. This one's all the way to the left, this one's all the way to the right, or this one's all the way to the right, and this one's in the middle. If you have any of their body parts overlapping, that part could be tricky because you need to brush very precisely for that one. So when you're doing it, make sure that your clones are not interacting or overlapping in any way. They can be looking at each other, but don't have any kind of high five or body parts that are touching because that will make it difficult. As long as your brush looks clean, this looks good, then everything's looking great. See, it's a very simple effect to do. You just make sure that you brush correctly. And then if I wanted to do the same thing, I would repeat it on all these. Like in the second example, I would just stack these on top of each other, create layer masks for all of them except for the bottom layer, and then recreate this exact same effect. So again, nothing new that we've talked about. You're just practicing the layer masks and blending images together like we've done in the last few assignments. For this one, since it is a project, you're not going to take a screenshot. We're only doing screenshots when we do practice assignments. Every project, you're going to export your final edit. So go to File, Export, Export As. Make sure this is on JPEG. It should be set to JPEG. You don't have to change anything else. JPEG is fine. And then just click Export. Tell it where to save. Mine will save in my Mine Clones project. And make sure you give it a name. Put your name, Clones. And then hit Save. And if you look at your files now, you should see it's right here. Here's my edited one. Here's all my raw files. Here's my edited clones file. Right there. So this is what you're going to create, and you will turn this in as a JPEG, not a screenshot. Okay? So this is where you really get to experiment, have fun, take as many shots as you want. Just make sure they're all on a tripod. Fill a whole room with an army of clones if you would like. and have fun. Let me know if you have any questions.